Is the rotator cuff causing your shoulder pain? This is Dr. Corey, and I help strength athletes with shoulder pain get back to lifting pain-free through our online shoulder coaching program. If you want to ultimately defeat your shoulder pain, it's important to understand your rotator cuff. First, you should know what four muscles make up the rotator cuff and how a lack of activation of one of those four muscles will lead to a whole wide array of issues that lead to compensatory patterns forming. So let's dive into it. Now, this video here shows a creative way of using power bands on a boxing dummy, explaining the four muscles that make up the rotator cuff, which are the supraspinatus, the infraspinatus, the teres minor, and the subscapularis. And if you're a PT and you're watching this, or you want to go to PT school, a good acronym to remember this is SITS, S-I-T-S. First, let's start with the supraspinatus, right on the top of the shoulder, right by the upper trap. This is the most commonly injured rotator cuff tendon out of all four, and it helps assist the arm into abduction, bringing it out to the side, and external rotation, almost like if you were to use your arm to comb your hair. And damage to this tendon will refer pain to the top of the shoulder, down the arm, sometimes even into the bicep. But most commonly, the pain for the supraspinatus will be kind of located to the top of the upper trap area in here. Second, you have the infraspinatus, okay? The infraspinatus is the biggest external rotator out of the four muscles that make up the rotator cuff. And it really helps to stabilize that humeral head so it doesn't move too excessively because it is so big and bulky compared to the other muscles. And damage to this tendon being the infraspinatus will send pain referral to the back outer side of the shoulder and back area of the shoulder blade. Third, you have the teres minor. This is the smallest muscle of the four that make up the rotator cuff. And this really helps assist you with external rotation at 90 degrees. So if you bring your elbow up to about shoulder height and you bring that wrist back, almost to simulate like an overhead press or some type of incline bench press, that is what the muscle is helping assist you do. And it's important to note here that the teres minor, being so small and kind of tucked away underneath the infraspinatus, is actually the least commonly injured rotator cuff tendon out of all four. And before we travel on and go to the fourth and final muscle and tendon that make up the rotator cuff, it's important to know that we talk about the rotator cuff as muscles and tendons, okay? Every muscle in the body has a tendon, right? You have to attach the muscle to bone somehow. A tendon is just the end of the muscle that attaches to the bone. Like picture raw chicken. If you're cutting up chicken, have you ever done that before? You're cutting off the white parts of the chicken that's really sticky. It's hard to break it apart. That's the same thing as your tendons. They just connect muscle to the bone, and that's most commonly where we're getting injured, being tendinitis, tendinosis, right? Tears and things like that, impingement, because there's a lack of blood supply to the tendons. So due to the lack of blood supply, that's why it's so hard to heal from damage to the tendons. All right, now on to our fourth and final muscle of our rotator cuff. That is going to be our subscapularis, which is the biggest out of all four of the rotator cuff muscles, and it sits on the inner side of the shoulder blade, and it mainly assists the arm in internal rotation. So bringing your arm kind of behind the back, right? Tucking your elbow into your side, bringing your wrist closer to the belly. It does help with all 2 to 3 of those motions there. It's going to refer pain down the side of the trunk and almost always into the inner area of that shoulder blade towards the middle of the spine. Now, keep in mind, I am not saying that an injury to any of those four rotator cuff muscles are always going to refer pain in that direct pattern, okay? It can vary and it can change based on research and what I've seen in the clinic and from patients presenting to me in person. And it really comes down to if there are other muscles damaged around that area or if there's any nerve damage as well. Because if there's nerve damage, there's going to have a different referral of symptoms to different areas, depending on if it's coming from the front of the shoulder, right, the top or the neck. And you're also going to have different type of symptoms. If your rotator cuff is truly damaged, you're going to have aching, sharp, sometimes even pinching pain. If you have a nerve issue, right, you're going to have usually a lack of kind of strength. There's going to be weakness there. You're going to have numbness and tingling, pins and needles, hot and cold sensation. So that is really how you differentiate the two, and also if you're doing some kind of specific muscle testing as well. The key here is to really understand what motions are painful, restricted, or stiff. If you can figure that out and then share that information with a PT before you do your assessment, you're already way ahead of the game. So we went over what the biggest rotator cuff muscle is, and that's going to be the subscapularis, which is not very commonly injured. Went over what the smallest, least commonly injured muscle is of the rotator cuff, which is the teres minor, okay? And if you want to know the most commonly injured, that's the supraspinatus, again on the top, because it sits right next to the bicep, and you use it the most in your everyday motions and movements, even with work, okay? But it's important to understand how those function and the referral of pain that we went over, because that's going to dictate how you treat it and you find the root cause of your dysfunction to get out of your shoulder pain once and for all. So if there's one final thing to take from this video, it's to realize that those four muscles of the rotator cuff all connect to the humeral head and they circle it like this. So they actually control and steer the joint, while your primary movers like your upper traps, your pecs, and your lats are going to help kind of move the joint. Okay, so those big muscles are going to move it. Those other muscles are like almost like the kind of cogwheel on a ship. Okay, so almost like if you're steering a ship, that's what they're doing for your shoulder joint. They're helping control it so it doesn't move excessively and that it moves enough. If you can understand where your issue is and what muscle is affected, that's going to help skyline your progress in physical therapy. It's going to help your therapist. It's going to help you because if you understand what's going on, you're going to be more likely to get out of pain and fix it permanently. Now, if you've gotten value from this video, don't forget to like and subscribe so you never miss one of my brand new shoulder pain fix weekly videos. And if you want more personalized help for your shoulder, we offer free one-to-one shoulder pain fix demos. You can DM me the word shoulder at the link below in the description that links to our Instagram account, Dr. Choffner PTSC. Thanks for watching and we'll see you next week.